Those Days with the Monsters. Part 41. Kirrel's leg ached from repeated impacts. His breathing wavered as his panting conflicted with the need to breathe deeply. The most obvious thing he felt was Smee's arm pinning him to the mat. "Good work, Jason. Kid, raise your arm slightly higher when you try to flip him. If you caught his center of mass, he'd have been down before the fight was halfway over." Alex pulled Kirrel up and demonstrated a few times on her younger brother, who, in spite of his protests, tipped over his own chest a total of 5 times.
"But if we're fighting against other species, how do I know where their center of mass is?"
Alex paused for a moment, then sighed. "That depends on what they do. Watch how I move, and how Jason moves." Alex walked across the room, then leaned forward. After a bit of prompting, Smee did the same, and then Alex again. "I have a lower center of mass because I'm a girl. Do you see how we lean differently?" Smee leaned over and whispered something to Alex, who groaned. "We are not going over that right now. Just how much do you want to confuse him?" "Sorry." Kirrel's frills flared and stained fuchsia with curiosity, but Alex shook her head. "Anyway, you learn how to see it with practice. That might not be something we have time to focus on, though."
"What do you mean?"
Kirrel's frills pricked up slightly.
"Where are we going?"
"It's where I'm going. A lot of us are heading out. There's a situation at the military shipyard that needs a personal touch. Happy's drones won't cut it, and I'm one of the ones involved in the project."
"The project?"
Alex sighed and shook her head. "Don't ask. But I'll be out for a bit. So will Cap, Sleepy, and Happy. I think a few people are staying back. Jason's one of them for sure. So the 2 of you should keep working on that while we're gone. Kid, I want to see you beating Jason about quarter of the time by the time we get back." Kirrel's frills flared to a full alarm position, turning a brilliant yellow with nervousness.
"What? A quarter? How long will you be gone?"
That was in almost impossible order. How was he ever meant to beat Smee a quarter of the time? He had barely reached the point where he could usually win 1 out of 20 fights, and he had to win 5 times that often? "We might be gone for a week or 2. Depends on how delicate the job turns out to be." Alex bared her teeth excitedly. "If we do it right, we could cripple half of what's left of the Tizik's military." Kirrel's frills flared. He remembered the silvery swarm around Kazurkan and the awe-inspiring force the Tiziks had brought to bear on it.
"Is that about the same amount they had on Kazurkan?"
"Pretty close." Alex's look faded into something close to the false calm ones. The translator seemed to have trouble with those, but to Kirrel's surprise it knew this expression. Pensive. But Alex wasn't done. "They don't bunch up like they did on Kazurkan anymore. They learn pretty fast from that one, but there are a few things they haven't learned yet. One of those is what we'll be using. We can't necessarily lock them in like we did there, but we can take a lot of them out of the fight for a long time." Kirrel wasn't sure he followed, but he nodded anyway.
"Is that where Sleepy is?"
he asked, frills perking up. Is where he will be. Why?" Frills stained with deep purple, Kirrel found himself looking at the mat in an attempt not to feel quite as awkward.
I wanted to show him that I can fight now, and I haven't seen him."
From the corner of his eye, he saw Alex's face change to an expression he hadn't seen on her before. He found himself hoping the translator would explain, even if it was wrong. But to do that he had to look directly at the face, and he didn't want to do that. "Ooh, ouch," Smee interrupted, not very helpfully. I'm not sure where he's been. I imagine he's pretty busy trying to take care of both the ship and the station, but I'll let him know when I see him." Alex sighed and leaned against the wall, kicking a chair forward slightly. "Come here, kid. Have a seat. I gotta explain this before it gets out of hand." Kirrel didn't really want to sit down, but he found himself doing so anyway. He wasn't sure what was about to get out of hand, but Alex seemed to think it was important enough to pause training for, so he probably shouldn't test her.
"What do you—"
He trailed off as a sudden pressure suggested something had fallen into his lap. The edges of his vision revealed black and white, suddenly present on his legs. Captain Amelia stared at him unsettlingly when he looked at her. Kirrel found himself quickly looking away. It was strange. He had slitted eyes, and so had his Rakuth co-workers on Core 5, but the cat's unblinking slits were still unnerving.
Right. Alex, you were going to say?
Alex sighed, leaning her head back against the wall. She'd folded her arms over her chest. Kirrel wasn't sure why the Kumans did that. It didn't seem to be aggressive, at least not this time. See, Sleepy? He doesn't look like it, but he's a bit self-effacing.
Self-effacing?
Kirrel's translator informed him that it meant attempting to erase yourself, but that made no sense. He doesn't really like to intrude much. Sure, sometimes he will, but it takes a lot to get him to that point. Centauri did a real number on the guy. With another sigh, Alex turned her face to Kirrel. If he's not around much, it's not unusual. The fact that he was around so much early on was pretty strange, actually. He's been a lot more assertive with you around. I think you're good for him. Kirrel took a moment to consider this.
Then, why did he stop being around? Did I make him mad?
His frills slowly turned deep blue. He hadn't meant to anger Sleepy. He didn't want Sleepy to avoid him. Nah, it's more... Alex took a deep breath, shook her head, and began to pat Kirrel's shoulder awkwardly. He got reminded of Centauri back with FG, and it just... I think he decided he didn't have the right to intrude. Kirrel's frills flared. Their blue deepened almost to black.
What? No, not Sleepy. Sleepy's not a rollaway. He doesn't deserve that. He should be involved. Where is he?
Sleepy? He's probably resting right now. Why? Kirrel wasn't having this. He was a rollaway and didn't get to intrude, but Sleepy was wonderful. Sleepy didn't deserve to feel like a rollaway. How could a Kuman feel like a rollaway when they weren't one? That made no sense. This was wrong. Sleepy's door was closed. His room was dark. Kirrel hesitated slightly, 1 foot in the door. Sleepy's voice came from inside. Spaceman, what are you doing? He was mumbling, as if Kirrel had woken him, but Kirrel couldn't stand it. In a second, Kirrel was trying to do what Alex had called a hug to Sleepy and getting somewhat tangled in the sheets. Whoa there, Spaceman. What's the matter with you? Kirrel sniffled, his eyes feeling hot and wet. He wasn't supposed to cry, but it didn't matter right now. Sleepy mattered.
No. This is wrong, Sleepy. You can't not belong. I won't let you. You don't deserve that. I know you don't deserve it.
Hey, settle down, okay? Settle down, Spaceman. What's going on? Kirrel found himself with his forehead squished up against Sleepy's shoulder.
Alex said you think you don't deserve to belong, and I can't let you. You're great, and I don't want you to be alone. You're not a rollaway. Why are you acting like one? You don't have to be by yourself.
Kirrel could feel Sleepy take a deep breath. Phew, when'd you learn something like this, huh?
What?
Kirrel sniffled, and his frills flared slightly. Never mind. Sleepy patted Kirrel's head, a bit clumsily, as if he was still a bit tired. You don't know what I did, Spaceman. You don't know.
And I don't care.
Kirrel tried very hard not to cry. It wasn't easy. How could someone who wasn't a rollaway act like this?
I miss you, and you're not a rollaway anyway. Please don't hide like this.
Sleepy hesitated. That's a tall order, Spaceman. After a moment, he sighed. I can't promise, but I'll try. For a while, Kirrel sat on the bed, his forehead squished against Sleepy's shoulder. Sleepy's breathing sounded slow and deep, and a bit soothing. Kirrel willed himself to be comforting somehow, but he didn't know if it was working or not. Eventually, Alex marched in and pulled Kirrel out the door. Go back to bed, Pops. I'll take care of your kid. Get some sleep. Kirrel didn't know what Pops was meant to mean, but Alex wasn't taking no for an answer. He glanced back before turning the corner and spotted a glimpse of black and white slipping into Sleepy's room. Maybe Alex was right about the cat following sad people.
Alex, why?
First, he needs some sleep. Alex held up 1 finger, then 2. Second, you've given him a lot to think about, kid. Someone like Sleepy needs time to process. She looked for a moment at Kirrel out of the corner of her eye, then bared her teeth. "You did good, kid. Like I said, you're good for him." Read by me, a good bean.